A dielectric union like this one here, this is a 3/4 inch dielectric union. A dielectric union is steel on one side, brass on the other side. And what you have is you have a gasket and an insulator. That insulator breaks the contact between the galvanized steel and the copper. This is where you'll find a lot of these in the top of your water heater. Your water heater just split in half. You just call it your plumber. You've got all galvanized steel in your house. The plumber is not going to be cutting and threading stuff on the job site. What he or she is going to be doing is he's going to be doing it all in copper and using this dielectric union to make the transition between the two. Now, in an exposed place like above your water heater, it's a great option. But any kind of union, no matter what it is not meant to be buried. You're supposed to have access to this. So unless you have access to it, it's a poor choice. So if it is a poor choice, you got to find a better place to put a union or have an access panel to it, because you should not be burying dielectric unions in a place that you don't have access to it. Because it's like a pump. They say it's not a question, will a pump fail? The question is, when will it fail? The same holds true of this. It's not a question if that gasket's going to fail, but when is it going to fail? We know it's going to happen someday. So these are not meant to be buried. They're not meant to be installed where you don't have access to them. So we got to keep that in mind. Now, in addition to the pipe and the tubing and the unions, there's also lots of different valves to choose from. The more valves, the better. There's no such thing as having too many valves. Now, this is an old-style valve. This is a sweat valve, meaning it's a valve that's meant to be soldered. This happens to be a one-inch valve. This is a gate valve. A gate valve, just like the name implies, is a brass valve that has a brass gate that as you turn this handle, it closes it down. There's very little, if any, obstruction on a valve like this. You can see it's full port. I can see perfectly through it, and so can you. Another kind of valve that you can buy and you can sweat onto copper, since we're talking about copper today, is a ball valve. There's ball valves and there's ball valves. This ball valve here is an 1.25 inch ball valve. This is called a full port ball valve. The valves that we sell are full port. You can buy ball valves that are highly restrictive. The valves that we sell here are full port ball valves. These valves are made in a lot of different places. This valve here happens to be an import valve. Pretty good valve for an import valve. But there is a difference in valves. If you wanted to get a valve that was going to last forever, the way to go is to buy a valve like this. And I'll show you the difference between them. This is an Apollo valve. Apollo valve also has no obstruction. This is a 3/4 inch Apollo valve. Let me ask you to hold this. And then what I'll do is I'll grab a 3/4 valve like this one here. Now, this is a company called JMF, as in Frank. And they're both 3/4 valves. Other than the fact there's a difference in the physical size of it, you can feel the difference in the weight of the valve. So one valve will last forever, and the other valve will last not forever. And just like tools, and we'll be talking about tools in the very near future here, there's no such thing as spending too much for a valve. Because the valve, when you need the valve, it has to work. It has to work. So when you do buy the valves, we strongly suggest that you buy the best valve that you can afford. And the only valve that you can afford is the best valve. So keep that in mind. Now, we're talking about copper pipe. And there's a lot of different fittings. There's T's and there's elbows and there's male adapters and there's female adapters and there's unions and there's all kinds of fittings. Now, how do you join these things together? There's only so many ways that you can join copper together. I mean, we know how you're going to join steel pipe together. They have threads on them, and what happens is you will take a fitting and you will essentially, a fitting or a valve, dope it up, take your wrench, tighten it, and that's how you join two pieces of pipe together. But for copper, how do you do it? How do you do it? There's any number of ways to do it, and I'm going to show you some of the ways. To give you an idea, here's a piece of 1/2-inch copper, and we'll just kind of work. We'll stick with the half for now. If I wanted to join this piece of 1/2-inch copper to another piece of 1/2-inch copper, there's at least 3 different ways that I can see that we can do it that are being shown right on this table right here. So we'll start with the easiest of them, okay? This is a compression union. Now when you buy hard pipe, when you buy sticks of pipe, you measure them by inside diameter. So for instance, this is 1/2-inch copper. Now the outside diameter of 1/2-inch copper is actually 5/8. When you buy a compression fittings are actually sized by the OD of the pipe or the fitting that you're working with. So if you have a piece of 1/2-inch copper and you're not going to be, and you want to join it to another piece, and the way that you want to do it is using compression, what you'll be purchasing is not a 1/2-inch compression union, but a 5/8 compression union. How do these work? Well, a compression union essentially has several pieces to it. What it has is, it has a body, it has 2 compression nuts and 2 compression rings to it. So what you would do is, you would take your copper, you'd cut it, you'd take a compression nut, which is what we have here, slide it over the copper, take the compression ring, which is what this is over here, slide it over the copper, take the fitting, which is the compression union, the body of the union, bury the copper in it, steady the actual body of the union with one wrench, be it either a pair of channel locks or 2 open-end wrenches. And if you're going to be doing plumbing, you'll have to get used to working with 2 hands. You never work with 1 wrench. You never have 1 pair of side cutters. That's why I could never understand when anybody ever comes and said, I want to buy a pair of side cutters. 1 pair of side cutters does you no good. You need 2 pairs of side cutters. 1 to pull on, 1 to hold back on. So what you'd be doing is, you'd be holding back on the body, tightening the compression nut, and that'll make your seal. Can you put Teflon tape on it? Never. Never. Don't ever put tape on it. You can put a little Teflon dope on it if you want to, or some pipe joint compound, but that acts more as a lubricant than anything else. If it's straight and it's tight and you don't over tighten it, it'll last indefinitely. So that's one way to join it. And these compression unions are available in a lot of sizes, and we sell them all here because it's all about selling us what you need. So we have the 5/8 unions for 1/2-inch copper. We also have 7/8 unions for 3/4 copper, because the outside diameter of 3/4 copper is actually 7/8. So we have 7/8 unions for you also. And we also have them in smaller sizes too, for tubing, 3/8 tubing, very commonly used. 1/4-inch tubing for ice makers, humidifier lines, filtered water, and we have them also in 1/2-inch OD. At one time, every dishwasher that was installed required a 1/2-inch soft copper water supply. The way the dishwashers are built now, you can feed them with 3/8, and they typically still work. So we do have compression unions in all those sizes available for you. Now things happen. Pipes freeze, and when they freeze, they thaw out. Now when they freeze, bad things happen. What happens is they usually split, and then they burst. And what are you going to do? Now, there are a lot of times when you have to do emergency repairs. When you have to do emergency repairs, especially on copper lines, it's important to have something. We even sell these. This is a compression union, and a piece of copper, hard copper, between them. Comes right from the factory. We stock these in both for 1/2-inch copper, meaning 5/8, and we stock them in 3/4, meaning 7/8. These will come in handy for you. There may be times when you just have a split. You can cut it out, and you can do something like this. This conforms to code, too. Now we're going to talk about another scenario. Now it's Sunday night, and a pipe just burst. and it really burst. And there's no way you can get to us. There's no way you can get back to your shop. You don't have what you need on the truck. I mean, it's really all the bad things have happened. All those bad things from the bad story, all the elements are there. So what do? Well, you can't just punt. You have to do something, right? What we have here is a very interesting fitting. You know, we talked about inside diameters, we talked about outside diameters. So what I have over here is, this is a piece of 1/2-inch copper pipe. This is a piece of PEX tubing, and this is a piece of 1/2-inch CPVC. PEX tubing is used for water supply or water distribution really all over the country. It's not approved for use here in the city, except for in-floor heating. In other parts of the country, you can buy this white, you can buy it red, you can buy it blue, you can buy it in sticks, and you can buy it in coils. Now, how do you join this? There's any number of ways that you can join PEX tubing to another piece of PEX tubing. But for our purposes, what I wanted to demonstrate was, here's PEX tubing, which is 5/8 OD. We have 1/2-inch CPVC, which is pipe, the plastic pipe that's made for chlorinated both hot and cold water distribution, and 1/2-inch copper, which is 5/8 OD. 5/8, 5/8, 5/8. But in your case, in your house, you just had a 1/2-inch piece of pipe burst. It froze and then it burst. And now it's thawed and water's everywhere. Well, you got to do something. What you can do is, you can take a fitting like this one. This happens to be a T. But this is called shark bites. There's any number of manufacturers that make this. This is the best of the bunch. This is a piece of 1/2-inch copper. This is a shark bite fitting. If I take this and I cut it square with a tubing cutter, take the burrs out, which I did, take the fitting, take the copper, bury it in the fitting and push it. I don't know if you heard that, but I could hear it. It is buried in there. Now it'll take 150 pounds to be able to pull this out, which I can't do and you can't do or anybody can do. And there's no way you can have 150 pounds of water pressure either, because at that, everything else would burst in the house. Every fill valve in your toilet, the top would blow off. Everything else would go to heck. How do you release this? Very easy to release. This little clip that comes with the fitting, that's how it came out. Now, I would have had to exert 150 pounds of pressure to pull it out, which no one here could do. Even in combination, we couldn't. Yet to take it out, all I did was take this clip, press it on here, and without really looking at it, pull it out.